Iran doesn't need a nuclear bomb. Its geography is already a weapon. If the Strait of Hormuz is shut down and pressure hits Bab el-Mandeb, the global economy feels it instantly. These aren't just waterways, they're global economic choke points. Hormuz is only 21 miles wide, yet nearly 30% of the world's oil passes through it, around 20 million barrels per day, plus LNG supplies that power Europe. That means fuel for cars, flights, factories, everything. Dense tanker traffic turns ships into easy targets for missiles and drones. History proves it. In the 1980s tanker war, and again in 2019, even limited attacks sent oil prices soaring. Now the second pressure point, Bab el-Mandeb. It controls access to the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. Nearly 30% of global container trade passes through it. In 2023, attacks cut shipping traffic by almost 70%, forcing reroutes around Africa. Weeks of delay, massive costs. Now imagine both closing together. Oil prices explode, inflation surges, global trade slows. That is Iran's real leverage. If Iran is attacked, the consequences won't stay regional, they will be global.
Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS that give us his truth and all his purity, and salutations to all the accomplishing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in sincerity and in truth. This lesson is going into Iran shutting off the Strait of Hormuz, which is going to have dire consequences for the global economy. You know, we have Donald Trump, been threatening Iran and sending those aircraft carriers over there in that region. And basically, they want regime change in Iran. And if you look at these devils' agendas going back to the, really for a long time, for decades, but mainly starting since the late 90s to the early 2000s, they came up with this plan on how to take over different countries. And, those countries that they want to take over just so happen to not have a central bank, which over the course of the years, they've been successful at taking majority of those countries on the list down. The only ones remaining were Venezuela, North Korea, and Iran, which is why there's so much pressure on those countries. But, North Korea, they got their hands on nuclear weapons, which is why Trump doesn't bully North Korea. And what the world is starting to realize is if you want America to leave you alone and respect you, you need to have nuclear weapons. And pursuant to Ezekiel the 30th chapter, Russia, which is Gog and Magog, they're going to be the ones supplying many nations, including Iran, Ethiopia, Turkey, Libya, and so on and so forth, with that nuclear technology, and that's what's gonna, balance out the power, so to speak. The scriptures speak about how all nations gonna shoot missiles here at Babylon the Great. All right, so this is what we seeing right now. All these nations, they're gearing up their military to take Babylon down. So, without further ado, this is Revelation chapter 6, verse 3. It says, "And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, 'Come and see.' And there went out another horse that was red. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another." That's right. When we read the scriptures, horse represents power, authority, rulership. So there went out another horse that was red. That is symbolic to identify Esau, Edom, which is the so-called white man. And the proof of that is going back to Genesis, the 25th chapter, when Edom was born, Esau, the scripture said he was red all over like a hairy garment, so he was red. And only children that are born red are so-called white babies, Edomite babies, so-called Caucasians, right? So that is Edom. His name was changed from Esau to Edom. Edom means red. Edomites means red people. So the red people is you so-called white people. That's why y'all call yourselves rednecks in the South, right? So there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that said thereon to take peace from the earth. Now, who's taking peace from the earth besides the so-called white man? There's never been so many wars in the history of the world until this man has taken power. There's never been no such thing as no world wars until this man took rulership. So they took peace from the earth. And when you go back to what's his devil name? I forgot his name. I forgot his name, but his devil, he basically was a Satanist, and they, concocted this plan of 3 world wars in the future, and it's been going according to their plans, according to their agendas. During world wars, the powers that be, the elites, the bankers, the J-ish people up top, that's when they make most of their wealth, because the stock market collapses and they're able to buy stocks at a low price, and countries go in debt because their infrastructure get destroyed and they need loans to rebuild it, and they also go in debt buying weapons to go in the war in the first place. So it's a win-win for the elites, and they also at the same time get to fulfill their agenda of depopulation, which according to the Georgia Guidestone, they want to reduce the population down to 500 million, from 8 billion. So those billions of people have to die, and the way that they're going to get taken out is by the way of war, world war, famines, and pestilences. Those are going to be the main ways the so-called white man, calls the population of the earth, which really is the Heavenly Father using him as a whipping stick, as a sword, to do his bidding on earth. So it says, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that said thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. World War I and World War II, that was white on white crime. They like to mention black on black crime, but what about World War I and World War II? Right? That show you the hypocrisy of these Edomites, man. It says, and there was given unto him a great sword. The great sword that was given unto the so-called white man is the power to fuse and split the atoms. Nuclear fusion and nuclear fission. They started with fission, which is where you get atomic bombs, splitting the atom, and then you got fusion now. So the Lord has upped their sword, their weaponry. That was the blessing that was given to their forefather Esau, right? It says, verse 5, and when he had opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou heard not the oil and the wine. That's right. So the black horse represents famine, represents great death. Right? It says, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand, and I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou heard not the oil and the wine. Now, in ancient times, a day's wage was a penny. So basically what this is saying is it's going to cost a day's wage or more to buy average goods. Now, for penny, the Greek word there is denarion, which was the Greek currency back then. Now, right, it says containing 10, right? Denarius containing 10. Like the suffix, the prefix D goes back, to 10. That's where you get decimal, right? Which decimal is, basically a tenth. Right? It says a Roman silver coin in New Testament time. It took its name from it being equal to 10 asses. A number after 217 BC increased to 16, about 0.1375 ounces. It was the principal silver coin of the Roman Empire. From the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, it would seem that the denarius was the ordinary pay for a day's wage. So this is a day's wage. So where it says a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny, see not thou heard not the oil and the wine. So things are gonna cost, however much People get paid today. The average individual, you know, is going to cost their whole wage just to buy, you know, a loaf of bread, you know, some cornflakes, some, you know, some corn, you know, some, really pretty much anything, because, you know, 99% of these foods have these wheat, barley, and these things as their base ingredients. If you look at the ingredients on, you know, even snacks, you know, look up snacks, junk food, you know, it does contain these things in there. So everything is going to skyrocket, you know, and, you know, Iran shutting off the Strait of Hormuz, you know, is going to lead to that, because the price of oil is going to skyrocket. And once the price of oil skyrockets, the price of everything skyrockets, because it costs the truckers, the logistical companies more money to bring, you know, to bring goods in different cities, because the gas is more expensive. So if a trucker, let's say, was charging $2,000 for a load to transfer it from, you know, from this city to that city, he has to go hundreds of miles. Let's say he charges $2,000. Well, guess what? Gas is up. You know, that means diesel is up, and diesel is always the most expensive. So it's going to go from maybe 2,000 now to 10,000, you know, or 15,000. So it's going to get to the point where it's not even worth it, you know. So that's going to crash a lot of businesses. Small businesses are going to get crushed, you know, immediately. And the only businesses that's going to remain standing is the big global corporations, which they will use to control the masses, you know, by giving them the illusion of choice, you know, because once their system crash, the next step is going to be the MOTB, as we've been prophesying for all these years, starting with the apostles. The digital currency, CBDC implants, and it's been in the talks, you know, with these central banks. And now you got, you know, Nate now trying to slither his way in to admitting that the mark is the chip. You know, he's trying to go about a, you know, roundabout way, right? But guess what? The Lord ain't accepting you, nigga. Because the scriptures say you cannot go any other way besides the door, which the door is Yahweh Shah. And what is Yahweh Shah? The spirit of prophecy. So if you're not prophesying, right, the truth, 100% truth, then you don't have Yahweh Shah, and you're a thief and a robber. You know, so you trying to backtrack now, and no, man, you can't do that. You know, you cannot become a prophet as the prophecies come to pass. You got to be a prophet before that. The word prophet means to say before, right? Prophesy means to say before. A prophet is somebody that says things before they happen, not while they're happening, you know? So, yep, verse 7, it says, and when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. That pale horse represents fear, chaos, calamity, right? And to prove it, real quick, this is Jeremiah 30:7, Jeremiah 30:5. For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. So there is no peace. You know, the scriptures say, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction is going to come upon them. You know, this is what's happening now. You got Iran and the U.S. envoys Witkoff and Jared Kushner meeting with the Iranian foreign minister, you know, in Geneva, trying to have talks and bring peace and come to a deal, you know, because they understand really Iran, you know, they understand that once it's up, you know, so they're trying to do everything in their power to, you know, stop this war from happening, because nobody wants war. You know, war is going to cripple everybody's economy, you know, kill billions of people. So they don't want that. They're trying to avoid it. But they told America, if you start this, we're going to finish it, you know. So you attack us, the whole world is going to feel it. And the whole world is going to blame America, you know, for their calamities, because they're the ones that incited the war, right? But it says, so not of peace, ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loin as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned to paleness. So it's so much chaos, fear, and calamity coming to America that, men are going to be screaming and crying as pregnant women, and faces are turned to paleness, which represents fear, So that's what's coming, man. Fear and shame, right? Dread, terror. The scriptures say the Most High, he's the king of terrors, So the Lord is about to terrorize, his people, 2/3 of his people, and these Babylonians, by the way of these plagues, man. Right? It says the last for that day is great, so that none is like it. None is like the time that we're coming into. You cannot compare it to any time period in history where you had great calamities, man. None is like it. It is even a time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. So it's a time of Jacob's trouble. The troubles that are coming is going to affect you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans the worst. You got niggas, talking about when ICE been going after the Northern Kingdom, the so-called Hispanics. You got the Southern Kingdom, the so-called Negroes, talking about, well, that ain't my problem, and, talking shit. But now ICE is on their asses too, right? Because you're still Jacob. You will not escape the curses, man. The only way to escape these curses is to return to Yahweh Hashem Yahshua, repent. But our people, they don't want to do that. That's boring. That's lame. To not, partake of the ways of this world. To not, get lineups. To not commit adultery and so on and so forth. To Jake, that's boring, right? So guess what? They're going to get overtaken in these calamities. The only ones that's going to be saved out of it is the elect, the 1/3, which the 144,000 is a part of, right? 1/3 of the nation of Israel, 33%. So back to Revelation chapter 6, verse 8, it says, I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. Now going back to Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, it says, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, he's as deaf and is as hell. Look at the World Economic Forum. They're talking about mass extermination, mass casualty events, the year of polycrises. This is what they're talking about, right? Bringing all these calamities upon the earth to bring forth an agenda of depopulation. And hell followed with him. But hey, man, you see it. The whole world is in an uproar. People are protesting all over the world. Why? Because this devil has taken over the world, and power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth to kill with sword. And that's what they've been doing, dropping bombs every single day in the Middle East, right? That's his sword, bringing those warships towards Iran. This is him flexing his sword, brandishing his sword. And with hunger, sanctions create hunger in countries, right? Weakening them, And he also controls the food supply. Right? So he could easily cause famine. And he knows the situation with Iran is going to cause, these things. That's why Trump, he's not backing down. They want this. They want this war. It says, and with death and with the beasts of the earth. And now these devils, they have the technology to actually control the insects and different animals using frequencies, microchips, and so on and so forth, man. This is why this devil think, he's on a godlike level, right? He has this God complex because he's able to accomplish things no other has done. He's able to accomplish things that's considered miracles, man. And the main miracle he's going to try to bring about is this RFID microchip. Let's get it. Revelation chapter 13. Verse 13, it says, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Speaking about the so-called white man. When you read this chapter, this is going into Greece, Rome, and fast forward to America. That Rome, that beast, the 4th beast. The scriptures talk about how the 4th beast, how it says it. Matter of fact, verse 12, and he exercised of all the power of the first beast before him. and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. The deadly wound being during the time of, when Rome fell, the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and the Eastern Roman Empire stood tall, which was governed by Israelites, so-called black men, so-called Negroes. That was the deadly wound, because after that, they reverted back to their original nature, which is animalistic, beast-like, right? They were cavemen, and then they got healed during the Renaissance. Renaissance means rebirth in French. So they were rebirthed. They revived the Roman Empire. This is Rome 2.0, right? So the deadly wound was healed, and he doeth great wonders so that he maketh fire come down from heaven in the sight of men. That happened during Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He dropped bombs from heaven and deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had a wound by a sword and did live. So they deceived the world by their miracles. Their miracles is their technology. They're able to tap into elements, tap into different things and different knowledges, and do different things. With frequency, drugs and so on and so forth. They're able to now so-called cure blindness, cure, different injuries, and disabilities. Those are the miracles, man. Right? The scriptures talk about how Satan is able to transform himself into an angel of light. And that's what they do. You got Mr. Beast promoting the mark of the beast. What a coincidence, right? He's just this philanthropist going all over the world, helping people, helping the poor, paying for this, paying for that, paying for this cure, paying for that cure, giving them this, giving them that. So to the world, he seems as this giving love, heartful person, but that's how the devil tricks you, man. He sets up different, people like that to lure the masses, and give them the illusion of choice, making them think that this is their own decision. But you have no other decision. All the options that's on the table is the options they give you. You're going to have Elon Musk with his own version of chip. We already see the Neuralink. Bill Gates going to have his own, or might, But they're definitely for sure going to have different versions. Just like how they don't just have one phone or one laptop brand. They got different ones. And people go with whatever they like. Right? So, verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. That's right. So, the image is going into his way of life, his democracy, his freedom of speech, and, AI, AI is the new God, it's going to be the new religion. And with AI, we could do this, we could do that. Right? That the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So if you're not with whatever they're coming with, the AI, the chips and everything, you're going to be on a list, right? It says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, which we know what the word mark is, but we're going to go into it really quick. It's charagma in the Greek. And it says a stamp and a printed mark. It says of the mark stamp on the forehead or right hand as the badge of the followers of the Antichrist, the mark branded upon horses, then carved sculpture, graven work of idolatrous images, right? So this mark is something physical. All these are all physical things, not spiritual, as you got camps telling you. Nate doing the switcheroo. The mark is spiritual, and him and ISUPK, a few camps, say that it's spiritual. But right here, we see that it's physical. It's a mark branded on horses. It's something carved, sculpture, graven work. This MOTB, this RFID chip, is literally an idol. It is an idol. It's a totem. It's a basically like a statue of the elites, that people are going to go to worship for the one of all things. You want food, you want pray to AI. In your mind, ask AI, I'm hungry, man, This is what this devil is doing, man. Right? So it says the mark branded upon horses, which represents ownership. If you take this chip, you're pretty much property of the elites, of the powers that be. Now let's go into the root word for charagma is charax. And it says a pale or stake, a palisade or rampart. And when you look those up, those are sharp things that get what's what I'm looking for, implanted in the earth, and the ground. It shows you that this mark is going to be implanted in people and bodies, right? Those bodies is the earth, right? Ashes and dirt. That's what it's made out of, right? So Revelation 13 and 16, it says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So the time is coming where paper is not going to have any value. The only currency is going to be digital. It don't matter if you have gold or silver, right? That they're not going to accept those as a means of payment. The only payment is going to be the CBDC digital money implants. It says, here is wisdom, let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, which the UPC code has those numbers, 6 in the beginning, 6 in the middle, and 6 at the end, right? So these devils, they want this global economic fallout, because when it happens, it's going to give them leverage, being that they control the food, they control all the resources. People are going to be desperate, so desperate that they're going to give up their bodies. This is Job 2, and let me get in NLT. This is Job 2 and 1. It says, one day the members of the heavenly court came again to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser Satan came with them, which shows you that Satan is part of the heavenly court. He's an angel of the heavenly Father on the left hand. Where have you come from? The Lord asked Satan. Satan answered the Lord, I have been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going down. And what does Satan tell Yahushua? Bow down and worship me. All these kingdoms of the world will I give you, for that is given unto me, and unto whomsoever I will. Basically saying, the Most High give him power and authority over the earth. And if you worship him, you live, you get blessings, right? And it says, verse 3, then the Lord asked, saying, have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man in all the earth. He is blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil, and he has maintained his integrity, even though you urged me to harm him without cause. Verse 4, Satan replied to the Lord, skin for skin, a man will give up everything he has to save his life. And that's what we're about to see. As these people are starving, they're losing their jobs, they don't have any, form of support. They're going to resort to give up everything, including themselves, in order to have some form of normalcy, to have a meal, to be able to have some form of housing, which, is going to be concentration camps, the ICE detention centers, But, hey, man, you'll be surprised what people will do when they're desperate. The saying goes, desperate people do desperate things. Desperate times calls for desperate measures. Things people wouldn't do on, regular times, they will do in those desperate times. People gonna turn into straight up, evil, wicked criminals, man. Kidnappings, cannibalists, anarchists, all kinds of madness, man. It says Genesis chapter 49 and 13. Meanwhile, the famine became so severe that all the food was used up, and people were starving throughout the lands of Egypt and Canaan, which is going into the famine in the time of Joseph. By selling grain to the people, Joseph eventually collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan, and he put the money in Pharaoh's treasury. When the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money, all the Egyptians came to Joseph. Our money is gone, they cried, but please give us food or we will die before your very eyes. Joseph replied, since your money is gone, bring me your livestock. I will give you food in exchange for your livestock. So they brought their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food, in exchange for their horses, flocks of sheep and goat, herds of cattle and donkeys. Joseph provided them with food for another year. But that year ended, and next year they came again and said, we cannot hide the truth from you, my lord. Our money is gone, and all our livestock and cattle are yours. We have nothing left to give but our bodies and our land. So that's desperation. And that's what these people will resort to when this economic collapse. You know, they're going to give up their bodies. They're going to give up everything. That's why the slogan for the New World Order is, the Great Reset is, you will own nothing and be happy. You know, the state, the government is going to own everything. Everything you have will be rented, whether it be the clothes on your back, the air that you breathe, it'll come at a cost. And these devils, New World Order, you're going to have to pay carbon tax and all these things. You know, you won't be able to eat to the full. You won't be able to travel. So this world that this devil is bringing is a dystopia, a kingdom of death, right? So this is how, you know, desperate people became, you know, and it's about to happen again. You know, the scriptures speak about how there's no worse death than dying by famine, you know, because you slowly die away, your body starves out, you know, till you're gone, you know, and this is what these devils understand, you know, famine, you know, food crisis is a great motivator to get people to fall in line with whatever agenda that you want to push. This is Revelation chapter 3, verse 10. It says, because you have obeyed my command to persevere, I will protect you from the great time of testing that will come upon the whole world to test those who belong to this world. That's right. So the time of great testing, the great time of testing is around the corner. The hour of temptation, you know, where Yahweh Shemashah is going to test everybody's faith on earth, you know, to see where their heart lies, whether it be to serve man, worshiping and serving the creature, you know, more than the creator, or whether it be the creator. And the only ones that's going to pass this testing are the elect, the 144,000, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel. Everybody else, the 2/3 of Israel, they're going to be destroyed. They're going to die in those calamities. And the heathens, they don't have a chance at all anyways. But, you know, this chip is going to be that test, that great test. When there's no food to eat, no jobs in the streets, no nothing. And you got these ICE agents or troops or police officers or anybody in authority coming up and telling you, we can give you rations. We can give you universal basic income. You know, we can give you housing too in these 15-minute cities. You know, we can even get you a job. All you need to do is just take this, you know, and that's when we're going to see who's Yahweh Shemashah. And may Yahweh Shemashah keep us and preserve us in a time of trouble and the hour of temptation, you know, so that we may overcome. So with that, I'm going to close out and give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Chakudash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS that give us his truth, and salutations to all you are can pushing this word. Shalom.